right, welcome to the Game Informer Show, the hottest show online, as they say. I'm your host, Ben Reeves. I'm joined today by a special group of editors. Joe Juba, how's it going?
Hello, thanks for having me.
We also got Alyx Stadnick.
Woof, I'm already sweating from this heat. Let's go.
And special musical guest, Dan Tack.
Hello, Ben Reeves. It's great to be here. And yes, I will do a couple of songs. We're going to get some Cats, Les Miserables, some other great show tunes in here today.
Wow,
no,
great.
Not really doing that.
You're going to do all of your greatest hits.
That's right.
I was expecting like a little ska music, maybe some Goldfinger. Changing up with the show tunes.
We've got some range, okay? I celebrate the entire catalog of Mr. Andrew Lloyd Webber, okay?
Wow. The first one on your list was Cats, too. It was an interesting go-to when you're like, hey, music.
Yeah.
First thing people
I don't know what your
Cats.
playlist looks like, Ben, but...
It's just all cats. Mostly cat noises, like just sounds they make. A lot of meows.
We're off to a great start. Great to be here.
Great. Well, hey, the show is only getting better because there's nowhere else to go from here. We have a good show for you. A great show, I would say. We're going to be talking about some games. We have our playlist that we always do. And then we want to do like a quick roundup of like sort of game of the year talk, kind of like we're a little over halfway now through the year. So we're going to talk about our potential games of the year and what they could be. It's a mystery. I don't know what theirs are, and they don't know what mine are. And then we have later on in the show, we have an interview with Howard Scott Warshaw. He was a very important developer, you could say. He was a famed Atari developer. He created Yar's Revenge, which is a classic. You maybe heard of it. He also did Raiders of the Lost Ark, that video game, which set him up to do another Steven Spielberg game, E.T. the Extraterrestrial, which is, I would say, an infamous game, right? Some people say it's the game that ruined the video game industry in the 80s. Anyway, we talk about all of that, and he's a very interesting guy. We talk a lot about the environment at at Atari, and how like just crazy it was. Well, yeah, some of his craziness rubbed off on me, let's say. And then he also says that he doesn't mind that people say that E.T. is the worst game ever made. And to find out why, you should listen to that interview. It's coming right up.
He's so interesting.
Well, that's available on this show at no extra charge. Coming right up. I'm in.
Gotta see it.
Thank you.
Right? You know what else I hope you're in for, Dan, is the GI playlist. Let's kick it off with you. What have you been playing, Dan?
I've heard of this feature. So I'm playing some Hyperscape. That's the Ubisoft's new battle royale with a big focus on streaming integration. So I've been playing a bunch of that. You can pay bits to put a disco ball into the game, or you can vote during the game to change gravity and give health packs, power ups, and unlimited ammo and other stuff like that. So it's basically a very heavily streamer focused take on the battle royale. So
have you been playing it while streaming?
I have not tried the integration myself at this time. I'm wondering if I should.
I think you should. I guess it depends on how interested people would be.
It's a big part of it. Like,
you don't want to tank your viewership if you're just playing a dumb game.
It wouldn't do that because I have another game on the playlist. It's a dumb game with streamer integration I'm going to talk about in a second.
But, great!
But this one's interesting because they are, like I said, they're leaning very heavily into this right now with the Twitch extension. Like you actually get, in a traditional game, you work up your battle pass by playing. Now in this game, you can work up your battle pass by watching and playing. So like, they really want you in there on that extension, voting and interacting.
Yeah.
And on the other side of that, I don't want to talk too much about Hyperscape because we have talked about it before. And to be honest, it hasn't changed a whole lot on release from when we first played it. There are some differences, and again, but like, it's still the core game that we saw before. And anyway,
worth playing though if you're into battle royales.
The verdict is still out on that one, but I would say that again, if you're not into the stream scene, you probably will play a different battle royale other than this one, based on what's here right now. Everything can change, right? These are living games, but right now, if you're already playing Fortnite or you're already playing Warzone, this probably isn't going to pull you away.
And if you're not playing any of those, it's probably not going to interest you in battle royale. I take it.
Again, there's a whole different demographic. Like pushing in on the stream scene could attract a lot of new people to the game. Will it? I don't think it will, but it could. I could be wrong.
Well, what's this other mystery game you teased?
What's that?
You teased another game that had.
I did. That's what I've been playing. We'll save that one for last. Next up on my playlist, I'll keep it to 3 games. Okay. Next up on my playlist is UnderMine, which is a very charming little roguelike. I would compare it to Binding of Isaac. It's on Game Pass. It was an early access for at least 6 months, maybe a year, and now 1.0 is out. So it's kind of a game. If you like Binding of Isaac or Rogue Legacy, because this has more permanent unlocks than I'd say Isaac does across your course. So like you are getting better every run. You're like, okay, maybe my pickaxe got a little stronger, or maybe my throw got a little farther. You're going to unlock permanent upgrades that are significant. So it's not necessarily just a straight up, oh, I died, but I unlocked a new character that I can play. You get more than that. You're getting real power as you go. But it is a roguelike. You're going to die a lot. You're going to fight tough bosses, and you're going to get killed by some BS. And you're going to have runs where you stack up like 7 curses, and you just have fun with it. It's fun. It's a fun little jaunt.
Reiner was talking all about this game. He compared it to The Legend of Zelda, which sounded really odd for a roguelike. You see that comparison?
I get where that's coming from. I wouldn't make that exact comparison, but in dungeon structure and like some of the boss fights that I've done, they feel very Zelda-y. So I get that. I get that take.
All right. So maybe that's what you're checking out.
Yeah. You've piqued my interest, Mr. Tack.
Well, then get in there.
Yeah.
It's available now on Game Pass and Xbox and Steam.
Cool. I'm definitely going to download that after this.
So. All right, cool. Last thing on my playlist, and I'll set you guys free. All right, this is the game that I'm playing streaming integration with. It's actually all stream integration. Okay, this game is called Stream Raiders. Okay, now picture this: you are the captain of a wargaming tabletop team, like a commander with a flag, or a big dark knight, or a big like monster. Okay, and then all of the people viewing your stream get to put their units in, and they get tanks, archers, healers, fighters, and all kinds of stuff. And then you just go into one big battle together against various sets of monsters, and then you get chests and loot. And that's it. That's the game. I know.
Is it fun?
Yeah, I'm super
enthusiastic.
I'm super into it.
Really?
But it's a complete stream experience. Like there's no game without you and the viewers. You can't sit there and play it by yourself. You have to have interaction. It's a really cool engagement vessel, I think. Could it use more gameplay? Sure. But what it is really fascinating to me. I think it's this is where, I don't think to put it to loop back on what I've already stated, with Hyperscape. This one leans all the way in on stream integration, whereas I think Hyperscape's just kind of okay, we've got that. That's the thing that we do. So I think there are going to be games in the future that are really, really heavy in this. And I think this is a very interesting first wave proof of concept into what integrated streaming games can look like.
Yeah, I think I'm a little confused. Why do you need to stream this game? What's that?
That is the only way you can play it. Wow. You can't get units on your battlefield without having the viewers plunking down their units.
So if you're just average Joe or average Doe who has no streamers, would this be fun for you?
It's possible that you could collect people from the people that are looking for captains to play under, because you can not serve. You can play with more than one captain, right? So you're going to be looking for new captains who have battles going. So they might find you. It's a cool way to pick up new people on your stream, actually, that way.
Okay.
So they can just find you through the game client. Be like, hey, I'm looking for somebody new to play. Oh, this guy's got a big battle going. He's going to have a big battle here in a couple minutes against, I don't know, plant people. All right? He's going to have a big fight. I've got a couple of units ready. I can throw them in there.
Interesting. Okay. That's kind of
I got to show you guys this. I'll show you guys this thing, okay? You've got to see it to believe it. It's weird, okay? But I'm into it. I'm into the experience.
It sounds interesting. Yeah.
I mean, and then the battles themselves, what's the action? Is it just your units are bigger and you have more streamers?
At the end of the day, well, no, because it does scale. There's some scaling. If you've got 300 people viewing it, the fight's going to be immense, right? So it takes into account that, does some balancing with an algorithm behind the scenes. So if you've only got 3 or 4 people that are regularly plunking down units, you can still take the fights. So it does balance it over time. You might lose a few. The game will be okay, Dan had 20 people watching last night, so here's a 20-person fight, and then only 5 people show up. We're gonna lose that fight, but then it'll balance it for me from there on in. So
okay,
it's very, like I said, to me, this is a highly intriguing experience that you do with other people.
Would you stream that with us? Should we look into streaming that? That could
we could. Well, let's talk about it after the stream.
Okay.
And
All right.
let's see what we can do, Alex.
Stay tuned.
Yeah, Dan's all about it because then he can get more viewers to boost his army, right?
Listen. I'm telling you what I'm playing. Okay, this is the playlist. Are we supposed to talk about what we're not playing?
It's all a game to you, isn't it, Dan? Life is a game, one big game of numbers.
And we're all winning. We're all winning, Mr. Reeves.
Well, I hope
That's
so.
my piece in the playlist. Cool games. Check them out.
That's great. So that was Stream Raiders. Is that what it's called?
It's called Stream Raiders, yeah.
And it's out now, it sounds like?
It's in beta, but yes, you could play it right now. It's based, you know, beta these days. God, what the hell? Early access, alpha, beta. These are all meaningless terms right now. It's out. Okay, you can go play it.
Sounds good. All right, Alex, over to you. What have you been playing?
So I'll start with the most interesting one as I write it down here. I am playing a lot of the Tony Hawk Pro Skater 1 and 2 warehouse demo, which is surprising how much time.
That's the most interesting one, huh?
Oh, shut up. It's the most relevant. That's what I'll say. It's the demo's coming out to the people who pre-order it on who've pre-ordered the digital version of the game, and then the people who go to Chipotle on August 14th, and I think it's the first 2,000 people who get Tony Hawk's burrito get a demo code too. Wild word we're living in.
Is this a sponsored stream today?
It could be. Chipotle, if you're listening. Here? Yeah. I could give you my burrito order too if we want to do the Alex Stadnick burrito, but there's no demo code for that.
Did you find out what Tony Hawk's burrito order is?
Yes, I will pull it up.
It's super late. Like it's just it's just an order burrito with food ingredients. It's not like they have it.
Isn't just like a chicken burrito with guacamole on it? Like
regular burrito.
There's nothing abnormal about it. It's just a specific list of Chipotle ingredients for a burrito.
It's brown rice, black beans, chicken, salsa, cheese, and guac, according to our own Dan Tack, who wrote the news piece.
Wait, that's
the guy who's making jokes about sponsored content is the one who wrote our news story. Huh?
I did. It's up on the website, GameInformer.com. We got the
news. So, anyways, the demo. It's only 2 minutes long, as people are going to find out, but they put you in and out really quickly. And as I'm finding out, I'm really bad at it, but that's okay because I'm still really enjoying it. And going into this, I needed to see how Vicarious Visions was going to bridge the gap between more modern conventions and maintaining that iconic feel of that game. And I think they've done a really good job. I like how quickly I've seen some people complain about, you're not doing crazy bails when you fall off your skateboard, but I like how quickly it gets you back into the action and the audio that it plays within that. I think it maintains that feel really well, and I think that bodes well for people who are excited about this. And I think this will be a good entry point for people who weren't around in the PS1 era when these games came out. So it has boosted my excitement a good amount for September 4th when that game comes out, which I'm very much looking forward to now. And to get his burrito, except I'd add sour cream. Need a little sour cream action on that.
Oh, but it's not his burrito anymore, is it, Alex?
Exactly. That's the Stadnick remix.
The Alex Hawk burrito.
Yeah, the creamy hawk.
Yeah, the creamy hawk. Yikes.
I recommend ordering that when you go to Chipotle. Just ask for that.
Yeah. Stone face too. No emotion. See how they react.
Hold on. Like, what percentage of Chipotle's, if you actually walked in and said, I want the Tony Hawk burrito, what percentage of places would be like, okay, this is what you get?
Yeah, how clued in are Chipotle nationwide staff members to this promotion?
If I wasn't worried
I mean, only 2,000 people get it.
I didn't know from what Pack's article said yes, but is it 2,000 per store?
You can more than 2,000 people can get the burrito, but the listing that with the press release that we accurately punched up said that only was the first 2,000 people that ordered the burrito got the demo.
I wonder if there was like just some old lady who just coincidentally like ordered everything on that burrito and like, oh, here's your code.
But to add to that,
throws the receipt away.
Even though only 2,000 people get the demo or whatever, they're doing a stream in a couple days where they're going to give away 5,000 burritos. I believe is the big number.
Burritos, not codes.
Yeah. I'm hungry. Are you hungry? Head over to the Chipotle.com for more.
I'd actually probably watch it for a free burrito. I'm gonna be honest.
So,
See?
Dan, when you first said that, what I imagine is not a bunch of single viewers winning burritos, but rather one viewer winning 5,000 burritos.
That would be more interesting. But they didn't mention how they were giving them out. It's just they're just going to do a stream and play the demo and give out burritos. Was the takeaway?
Hey, that's a good selling point.
What a wild world we live in. But yeah,
There you go. So that's the Tony Hawk burrito review. Stay tuned, Alex.
We gotta,
anything else?
we need some press copies of that burrito. I need to do some experiments.
Hands on with the Tony Hawk burrito.
That's right.
The tongue on.
I love it. I love that so much. You could also pre-order it regularly, but it's only the digital edition that you get the warehouse demo. So, but on top of that, I've transitioned my Switch game of the night that I kind of cool down on and go to before I go to bed. I'm starting Dragon Quest 11 again, not restarting it, but I'm picking it back up. It's such a beefy game, but it's easy to go fight a couple of people, sail to a couple of different islands right now. I just I'm picking. I do love that they have the story recap, because anytime I think about going back, I'm like, ugh, I'm 20 hours in, I don't remember what I did. But then they have that nice little story recap, and I'm like, yes, I know where I am now. So it's just been a good way to end my evenings. It's nothing too hard, and I love the world. So and then I'm still playing Psychonauts and a bunch of other stuff, but that's why I led with Tony Hawk. Nothing crazy. Oh, and Fall Guys. Finally got my first win to this morning, baby.
Hey,
Let's go!
Congratulations.
It was
Okay.
very good.
Correct me if I'm wrong. Is there a trophy in that game for winning 5 consecutive games?
Yeah,
There is. It's very
What?
difficult.
it's insane.
Very difficult. Especially
That
if you run
sounds
into a
insane.
cheater on PC.
That just seems impossible.
People have done it. It's not easy.
Yeah.
But there's so much of that that's up to chance. Like that would
There
be
is.
that would upset
That'd be
me
so
much
frustrating.
Yeah.
to get like 4 in a
it's-
row, and then like your first round, the next one, just like somebody grabs you and pulls you down or something.
You know, I get it for the achievement hunters that want 100% everything and not like memorize all the maps and all the little quirks and quibbles. You gotta think that they changed that one, right? Just like 5 wins period instead of 5 in a
Or-
row.
I mean, have it be more wins. That's fine.
Yeah.
Like, hey,
Yeah.
25 wins total rather
Okay.
than 5
That's
consecutive,
pretty
you know?
reasonable.
Even
I
like
think they should change it.
yeah, I guess I'd be curious to see what the history of that is, if people have changed their trophies and achievements. But yeah, like I was like looking through the whole list, I was like, I could platinum this. Like I think it's gonna take a while, but I'm loving this game so far. I could probably get the platinum. Then I saw that and I was like, and nope, never gonna
It's a
happen.
big ask.
So
And I'm still waiting for the stupid duck outfit to come into the shop. It has not been there yet.
oh yeah,
Bummer, dude.
I'm working towards
I
the
know.
hot dog right now. I'm getting up there. I'm slowly moving.
Hot dog's the one, man. Hot dog's the one. All right, Joe, what's on your playlist?
Yeah, well, I've got 3 also, but I'll keep it pretty brief. I've gone back to Stardew Valley again recently, which a little while ago the developer Concerned Ape posted that a little tease about what's going on with some of the end game stuff. He posted a screenshot of a door in the back of Willie's fish hut, which hints at some new end game content, and that just sort of made me realize, like, oh, there was a few things from this last update that I didn't quite polish off. So I jumped into my Switch version of it, and I'm now, in like year 6 and have millions of dollars and whatever, but I'm still sort of, just checking out some of the new stuff in there. And let's see, my other one. Hold on. Oh, yeah, I started Ori and the Will of the Wisps,
Yay!
which I did not get around to earlier this year. And so I mean, I'm not far at all. Like I'm like 2 or 3 hours in at this point. But yeah,
Sounds like
I mean,
you're bad at it.
no, no, I mean, I don't remember the first game super well, so it's hard for me to point to the like, oh, this is a big improvement or different from the last one. But I still I like the formula that it's got going on. Partially because as someone who's a big fan of that sort of like Metroid style gated progression, map exploration kind of thing, I think the key to a good game like that is clever mobility powers. Like I don't care how many different guns you give me or like different weird ways to kill enemies, because the combat for me is never the centerpiece. It's always the navigation in those games. So I like games like the original Ori did, with giving you just fun ways to move through the world. Or like Axiom Verge is another example of one that I just love what that game does with it. So
Yeah,
so I'm enjoying that so far. And then the third one on my list is not actually what I am playing, but what I have purchased and been wanting to play and still haven't found the time for, and that's Littlewood, which is sort of in
Oh,
this.
I don't think we can talk about that. This is a family-friendly show.
Yeah, which maybe like it's sort of a Stardew Valley kind of thing, or Harvest Moon inspired. It's just like a little, like a cute sort of retro pixel look, like town management farming simulation kind of thing. It was in early access for a while. It hit 1.0 recently, and I've been meaning to jump into it, but like I said, I've been spending some time with Stardew and can't really do that much management simulation at once.
Trying to do two of those, yeah, one seems like a hard thing, because there's some other games that you've been diving into, like preview wise. I know that, or maybe similar to that, right?
Yeah.
Well, I don't know if you can talk about them or not, but I
can't dig into
like
that.
Holding all that stuff in your mind would be hard.
Yeah. So that's basically that's me. What about you, Ben?
Oh, well, thanks for asking, Joe. I don't think many people ask. I appreciate it. Yeah, I'm sort of between big games. I haven't found anything that I really want to like sink my teeth into. I've been dabbling with Messenger. I've been dabbling with Hollow Knight, kind of playing some stuff. But I actually don't even want to talk about any of that. I want to talk about, I read through the making of Half-Life Alyx recently. I finally finished that. It's the, Jeff Keighley. He's done a couple of these now where he does a deep dive on a game studio and like the making of a game. And this is his deep dive on Half-Life Alyx, the VR game that came out earlier in the year. And it was super good. I loved that game when it came out, played it a ton. And this, if you're really into just going in deep and in the history of the making of a game, like this is totally worth reading. It's on Steam, so you'd have to read it probably on your PC or laptop, which isn't ideal. But I enjoyed what I had. It's like super interesting stuff on just the working conditions at Valve, because there's no leadership there per se. Like nobody has any specific job title, and so it's really hard to like get somebody get the ball rolling on a project, because you need people to sort of spearhead something, and sometimes you need people to dictate, hey, you're going to do this, but that's hard to do at Valve because nobody can boss anybody around there. So just the insight there and like how they got this project through that kind of work environment was super interesting.
I mean, they say that, but like Gabe Newell can boss people around, right?
Gabe Newell can boss people around. But, there's a couple of quotes in there from him where he said stuff to the effect of like, well, I hope we can talk about, the next Half-Life next year. But it's clear that he's not telling anybody like, you have to make this game or you have to do this. So I don't know. That's interesting. Interesting point. And then the other thing I've been checking out, again, is not a game, but it's High Score. Did you guys hear about this? It's the Netflix documentary. They're putting out a Netflix documentary on video games.
Yeah, I've seen it. Is it being kickstarted or what? Or am I thinking of something else?
Oh, you might be thinking of something else, because Netflix is doing this. It comes out August 19th. It's like a 6-part documentary series. I happen to get like an early access preview screen, so I got to check it out, and it's really cool. It's very broad reaching. So they start in the early Atari days and they continue on through the mid 90s. Like 3D boom, let's say. They kind of end with Doom. So there's definitely room to make a sequel if they wanted. And again, it's like so broad reaching where they don't go in super deep on any one thing.
It's 6 parts? 6 parts that only go up to Doom?
So it's 6 hours? 6 hours of content from the beginning of the Doom?
Wow. 40 minutes a piece.
Well, you figure one episode is just going to be Pong, right? That's like a whole episode.
One episode is basically Atari. It's like all the Atari stuff. And then they do one that's like fighting games or something where it's like Street Fighter and Mortal Kombat and that whole thing. And then, like I said, they pair up Doom and Star Fox, which I hadn't thought of before, but they were kind of around the same time and they were both 3D games. So that's kind of an interesting thing. But like I said, it's kind of like if you're really nerdy about video game history, you probably know most of this stuff already, but it's always interesting to watch the developers talk about their game. They have one interview with Roberta Williams, who created King's Quest,
Oh yeah.
and she talked about creating King's Quest. And actually, to start, she laid out a giant piece of paper on her table and would draw out the land. Like, this is where this castle is, this is where this is. And so it's just kind of interesting to see them reenact stuff like that. So that comes out again August 19th, high score. It's kind of worth watching if you're into video game history.
If it's anything
I'm
like
day one.
yeah, if it's anything like the interview we did with Howard, like it's gonna be good because he is a very interesting man.
Yeah, and that's how this came up. And so Howard is actually featured in the documentary at one point, not super in depth. I wish they had gone in more in depth with him. You can actually get more from him in our interview, which is coming up. Just a little tip.
Wait,
All
in
right,
this episode?
in this
I
episode,
don't
here.
believe it.
right here. Stay tuned.
That is hot.
All right, Dan Tack, you want to play us out?
Do-do-do. There you go.
Perfect. That ends the playlist section, and that starts up our next segment, which we like to call "Who's Got Your Goatee?" And that's where we like to talk about
Is this
the
really
game
happening?
of the
Is
year.
this real life? Okay.
That's right. We
I
think
wouldn't
hard
say
about
we
these
like to call
segments.
it that, but we do.
Yeah, we really workshop those segment titles really hard.
Went over for hours before the show.
Oh yeah. So we just thought it'd be fun, real quick, to just go over just our personal choices for what our game of the year could be. You know, it's about halfway through the year. There's a lot of big stuff coming up, but we've already played some amazing games. So I think it'd be fun if we just went around the horn and just talked about like the one or two games that you think like, man, this could be my game of the year. Anybody want to go first? Alex?
I do. It's 2020 whilst being a dumpster fire in the real world. I think there's a lot of games that if they came out last year would have been my game of the year, like no question. To start the year, that was Animal Crossing for me. And I think, and I've fallen off hard of Animal Crossing. My turnips are just rotting away right now. It's not good. But the thing that is special to me about Animal Crossing and will always be special to me about that Switch game is it was a game that I needed at the time it came out because we were fresh in the pandemic. It came out in March and we had to isolate and we had to break, what we would do normally. And that was hard. And that was hard for a lot of people. But I'm being a very social creature. I was like, I don't know how to deal with this the right way. And I wasn't seeing my girlfriend at the time either because her sister is asthmatic and they were living together. So I was terrified of getting anyone sick.
Yeah.
But Animal Crossing was coming out. I had never been into those kind of games. I'm much more action focused. I like shooters, like that kind of stuff. But it was just such a peaceful respite from the rest of the world. And it was a breath of fresh air that I started to love on my own. But then it took on that special meaning when my friends started to play it, when we started comparing turnip prices, when we started to go to each other's islands. And it was just this fresh feeling of normalcy and fun that the world had really taken from us at this point. And it's one that I wonder too if I'm ever going to play again as much because I'm going to associate it with that time in my life. Because it's when I think about that in those starting days when I put 100 hours in the first couple weeks or whatever, nowhere near what like Margaret did. I'm curious what her hour count is still, but I wonder if it's just going to be a time and place game for me. And I think that's okay because that's something that I needed at that time. Joe, I know you were pretty high on it too, correct?
Yeah. Yeah, I was. Though it's actually, I wouldn't say it's probably in my top 10 for the year, but it's not, Animal Crossing probably isn't even like top 5 for me in terms of what I played. No, I mean, yeah. and I like it. And it was, I mean, I put over 100 hours into that game, definitely. But I think I kind of had the same experience that you did with it in the sense that I played it really hard at first and really enjoyed it. And then there's some and it's no fault of the games. Like I got dozens of great hours out of it. But at some point it's just like, yeah, I just feel like I've seen what I need to see here.
I've done what I need to do. And that's why, and I agree with you, and that's why it's going to be, I think it's going to finish in my top 5, but it was my game of the year up until Last of Us came out. And Joe, I don't know where it is on your list, and Ben and Dan, but Last of Us, to me, I think there's some fair criticisms of it out there, but I think it pushed video game narrative in a way that should not have worked, and directly goes against like the objective pillars of narrative structuring. And there are some things in that game, because we can't really
there's stuff we can't spoil about that game to fully unpack it in a situation like this, but it makes some bold choices that I think make it very what's like, it's just engaging in a way that you don't necessarily expect it to be.
And it's hard to get through. Like, I don't blame people for not wanting to play this right now, because like I cried multiple times in that game. I'm a big softie, but like there's some brutal stuff that if you have a love of these characters, like it is hard to watch. But that's video games don't necessarily need to be that, but this one set out to do that, and I think it knocked it out of the park. And I have not had a more visceral reaction to a video game this year.
Wow. Yeah. Joe, is that also on your list?
Well, yeah, I'll sort of piggyback off of Alex's comments there, just because I think Last of Us Part 2 is my game of the year, and I honestly just don't see anything unseating it, because in addition to that, like, I just think it's probably the best game of this generation.
And we are spicy.
And very serious.
And I understand. I don't mean to say that in some sort of broad way that is like it should be that for everyone. Like, one of the things that I have, and I think I've said this before, but like I find so interesting about that game is just the variety of different perspectives on it. Rather than, like, when that game came out, I wasn't necessarily into reading all of the different reviews that were giving it different scores. Like, I'm less interested in it as like it's a assessment of it as a game, and much more interested in it in terms of like what it makes people think about and how it helps people share different experiences from, just like different parts of life that it touches on, right? Whether that's like LGBTQ stuff, whether that's there's just all sorts of different areas that game touches about the human experience. That I'm not saying that it is the best game for summarizing the human experience, because that would be a broad claim. But I think it can represent a lot of different things to a lot of different people. And that's why I've really enjoyed just the tale following behind that game and all of the different like talk about it. But for me personally, I also just loved the game. Like,
do you think you'll play again before the end of the year?
Yeah. So funny you bring that up, because it's August 13th, right?
Yes, 13th.
Yeah.
Yep.
So today, Naughty Dog released a new patch that has a grounded difficulty, but also has a bunch of different modifiers that you can add to the game. And this is what I've been waiting for to replay it, because I only played it that first time. It's like cheat codes, essentially, that there's things like infinite craft, like infinite resources, infinite crafting, like infinite, like your melee weapons don't break. I assume there's got to be like infinite ammo in there and stuff too. Like that's how this is a whole tangent that I won't get into, but like I miss cheat codes in games so much. Not because I want to make games easy. It's not about like not being able to complete them. It's about, like, if you guys think back to the first time you played like Grand Theft Auto 3 and entered in those cheat codes that spawned a tank in front of you and gave you a rocket launcher and a machine gun and stuff, like, you don't do that because the game's too hard. You do that because it's fun. It's fun to like be powerful in a game and be able to push its systems in different ways. So I am looking forward to being able to do that in The Last of Us.
Yeah,
Part
and that's
2.
a good point. Like, I really like that structure of like they release the game, and then a couple months later, here's an update that gives you a good reason to go back to it and just play around. Because, like you're saying, that Grand Theft Auto example is perfect. For a lot of people, that was the game. Like, you played the game and you put in cheat codes, and like that's how you were having fun with the game. Like, they didn't play through the story, they didn't do a lot of the missions, they just had fun in that world, and that was fine because that's how they had fun. So anything that allows you to have fun in a game, I know that's controversial. I'm for it.
Yeah.
Wow.
Cool.
How dare you?
I know exactly. Yeah. So you don't think anything will unseat that, huh, Joe?
No, I mean, I should say I'm really looking forward to Cyberpunk, and I'm really looking forward to the new Assassin's Creed.
Mhm.
And I think in a year without The Last of Us Part 2, those would very easily have a shot at my top slot. But again, like with The Last of Us, you're just dealing with the intersection of story and characters and crafted environments and all of this kind of stuff. I feel like I didn't enthuse enough about this stuff before as I was talking about it, that it's like the game, the craftsmanship on that game is just so immersive and next level that like, I don't know that I've ever played a game that just had me so consistently impressed from one turn to the next.
Yeah, I'm right up there with your, like, Last of Us is one of my favorite games this year, but oddly enough, like, I'm not sure it's going to be my game of the year. Like, I think there's just like, and I wouldn't have expected that like 2 months ago, but I think just without going into spoilers, it kind of like there's parts of it that just sort of like overstay their welcome a little bit for me. And so like super well made game, really loved it. Probably top 5 for me, I'm sure, but for my personal game of the year, it might be just because I'm reading Making of Half-Life Alyx, but I keep thinking about Half-Life Alyx and how much fun I had in that game. And I keep wanting to go back and replay it because there's so many just like, it's unfair because it's VR, but like it's so immersive. Like you're in this world and just like picking up bottles and tossing them around, or you pick up a marker and you can draw on a whiteboard, like stupid stuff like that is so fun. But then on top of that, it's like a legit game. Like it's a legit fun shooter with like a really compelling narrative, especially near the end. Not as compelling as Last of Us, but like for what they're doing, like it's really interesting world and a really cool just like cliffhanger that leaves you like wanting more immediately. So yeah, like Half-Life's up there as potentially my game of the year. And then the other one with it is one that you brought up earlier, Joe, Ori and the Will of the Wisp, which man, it's just such a well-made game that I had fun start to finish. I don't think there was ever a point where it wasn't the game that I wanted to be playing right then. I love those Metroid style games. Like you were saying, Joe, a lot of people call them Metroidvanias. I think
I deliberately avoid
games.
that.
Yeah, honestly, because Metroid's the one that started it, and this is like, man, far and away one of the best of those games that I played in a long time. And it's beautiful, and the story is like super moving. Like it's very well told and emotional.
Yeah, Moon Studios is absolutely one of the best indie devs out there. They produce such good work, and I'm excited to see what they do next.
Did you see? Was it last week? Maybe they announced. Private Division announced that they're working with Moon Studios on their next next game.
Such a good
get.
Yeah. I'm excited to hear what that is.
Yeah,
but we'll have to wait. Dan Tack.
Didn't they say it was going to be like an action RPG or something?
Yeah, but like that's all. Like they said, it's a new IP. It's action RPG.
Totally going to be.
I think they said that. Well, but you might even. But like you could argue that Ori's an action RPG.
I could actually argue that. In fact, Ori is on my list as well. It's not my number one, but it's on my list. Yeah, I hate doing these things early because especially this year, we got so much stacked up at the back end. At the end of the day, if I do what Dan predicts, it'll probably end up being Cyberpunk based on what we know already and their previous game and all this other stuff. But that's no fun. How about I just break the rules entirely and just say Death Stranding? Because,
wow!
Let's hear about this.
That did release this year on PC.
It came out for me this year, and somehow I managed to avoid everything about it when it came out originally. So for like, there was those office discussions where I was like, man, it's really weird. You like pee on mushrooms and stuff, and I'm like, what are they even talking about? I'm gonna go play Dota, the typical PC guy kind of thing. But like, when I got this game, I had no expectations going in. I had no idea what to expect, and I was enthralled with this from beginning to end. Well, maybe not the end, but but the majority of that game, I was just fascinated by the whole thing. I'm like, wait, like the game is you carry stuff. That's the game. That's the gameplay element. What?
Yeah.
What are they doing?
And when the big upgrades you're looking forward to are things like, oh, great, I have this power skeleton so I don't tumble
Yeah.
over like an idiot.
And
And like,
somehow
oh, good, I have a truck that can just go on roads.
Yeah, or not, and constantly get stuck in rocks. Like I tried to love that game, but it was so frustrating to go from one place to the next. But Dan, I'm glad that you love it.
Yeah. Well, again, I have some pretty considerable issues with some aspects of it, but overall, as the experience, I was captivated. That's the thing. Like, I couldn't wait to play it every day. I'm like, man, I can't wait to go deliver some packages.
Yeah.
Like
I am
it's very there was like you have a really good sense of progression and upgrades. They're all meaningful, and the scenery changes. You're like, okay, I get how this game works now. You know, I'm walking across a grassy field. Now I'm in a snow-covered blizzard, and I
Yeah.
can't see anything. And there's ghost monsters all around me. And my God, this is crazy. And there's like, but Dan, that's just a walking sim. I'm like, dude, what are you talking about, man? This is an experience.
Well, and those moments where there's like a city, like you walk over the top of a hill and there's a city down in a valley, like underneath you, and they start playing that music over the low roar starts playing, and like,
oh my God,
there are moments in that game.
Kojima's
sure.
music selection for that game is impeccable, man. Like very emotional, even when they're screwing it up with dialogue and story.
Yeah,
they still nail all the stuff. It's just like it's beautiful.
After finishing that, like I have listened to so much low roar on Spotify after finishing Death Stranding. Like, yeah, I'm so glad I did not have to score that game. That would be a complicated review to compose.
I will agree with that. I would not have wanted to review that game, but I'm very happy that I did get to experience that game. And I did it kind of on a whim. Somebody was like, Dan, you'll hate that game. Go play it. You'll be amazed at what a dull walking simulator it is. I'm like, all right, wait a minute. So like there's like these bad guys that I have to like figure out how to evade or tackle, or there's ghosts, and there's like like what is this game even? And it's really cool. And it's like, yeah, not every part of the game was a slam dunk for me, but the overall experience, like I keep thinking about it. I'm like,
yeah,
I haven't played anything like that. Maybe ever.
Yeah.
And I know like, yeah, whatever. It's not the first Strand game and all that. That's whatever. Like there's been plenty of games where you interact with other people in various ways, offline and online. But like just that experience, I don't think I've ever had it, and I'm very glad I took the trip. It was a great trip.
Well, Dan,
if I'm allowed to
just came in
on my game, I'm allowed to include it on my Game of the Year list, even though it's old. I will.
It's your list, man. You can do whatever you want. This news just came in too. The UN just said that August 13th is now the end of the year. They want to get started early on 2021. So this is going to be your Game of the Year?
That's a decision the UN makes now?
Yeah, I don't know, man. I got to trust them. They're the UN.
We live in.
Real talk, I'd love that. I wish that was real. Start this year over.
Out of stuff this year, as I already mentioned, really looking forward to Cyberpunk. I haven't finished Last of Us 2 myself. I have watched a couple of my friends play through it, so I'm up on it.
Are you like
Did you play FF7 Remake, Dan?
Here's this where this one gets complicated. I want to Death Stranding that one. I want to play it when it comes on PC. Right? I really want to do that. Unless it takes a real effort for me to drag out the old, dust off the old PS4 and bring it out when I know it's coming. When I know it's coming, and I'll be able to experience that game that I really want to experience on PC.
Does it have a release date on PC?
No, but there was the they had the 1 year exclusivity deal or whatever. So
yeah,
the second that drops, it's going to land on Steam.
Dan, did you drag the PS4 out for Last of Us or Ghost of Tsushima?
I did drag it out for Last of Us, but I didn't finish. Like I said, then I started watching two of my friends' playthroughs, and so I know what happens.
The wrong way to do that.
It was, but I don't. I'll be in that. I'll be able to have that conversation. I will finish it by the year's end.
All right. Well, I'm saying if it's out for that, you could just play Final Fantasy.
No, because then I'm just going to be sitting there on my console all day. I got other systems to play on. Okay, that's my platform.
Okay.
My goodness.
You mentioned Ghost of Tsushima, Ben, and that's another one that I think for me was I don't think it's in contention for that top slot, but it was a big surprise how much I was expecting to play and enjoy that game, and was not expecting to be as into it as I was. Like that one, I mean, that one beats Animal Crossing for me.
Oh, well.
So
yeah, I mean, I like that game a lot, although in the same breath, I'm also a little bit surprised about the number of people I've seen online saying this is game of the year for them. Because, I mean, it's a great game, but in a year that I feel like has been pretty strong, it just doesn't quite measure up to some of the other games we've talked about. But that's just me.
But I
Enjoy
definitely
the games you enjoy.
That was a really interesting one to play right after, or very shortly after The Last of Us Part 2, because like The Last of Us Part 2 is an immersive cinematic capital E experience, right? And like Ghost of Tsushima is like I started playing that game, I opened up the map, I saw these different missions and collectibles, and I was like, oh yeah, this is a video game. You know,
100%.
It's a very video game, yeah.
Yeah, and it scratched a very particular itch for me at that moment, coming off of The Last of Us Part 2. So, yeah.
I almost
Great.
I just quickly before we get out of it, like it almost that first 4-5 hours, it almost hurt that it came after Last of Us for me because I was nitpicking so much of, oh, there's some pop in here, oh, the animation's weird there. But once I was like, oh, this is just a video game. I was like, this is I think there's an argument to be made out there that that's more fun than Last of Us. You know, like the gameplay is more fun. So it's interesting to see how those camps are gonna quarrel at the end of the year.
Yeah,
I don't think the fight's going to be that big at the end of the year this year, but we'll see. You know, knowing our traditional, we've had some real battles in that room. Who knows if we'll even be in that room this year? We might be in a room.
I don't think we
digital
will.
room.
You'll be in the room you're in now.
It's very possible. But I actually do not foresee this being one of those years where, you know, there's the gnashing of teeth and the furious swipes and the claws and the teeth. You know, I don't think that we'll see that this year.
Oh, Dan, I just got another message from the UN saying that all podcast segments need to be 30 minutes from now on. So we're already over time. We got to end this segment now.
Can't even get in the rest of mine. Okay, for some just want to mention then real quick other things that are going to be in my listing.
Oh, you're going to be in so much trouble with the UN.
Oh man, the UN sending you a nasty email right now.
It'll be so quick. It'll be one sentence. Monster Train, Neo 2, and Animal Crossing will all be in the conversation for me.
I don't think that's grammatically correct, but all right. Thank you, Dan. We'll be right back. Oh, stay tuned. I don't think I mentioned this. We have an interview with Howard Scott Warshaw coming right up. And welcome back to the Game Informer Show. I'm Ben Reeves. Alyx Stadnick still here.
Hello, friends.
And we're joined by a very special guest today. We have Howard Scott Warshaw. How's it going, Howard?
Going really well. How you doing, Ben?
I'm good. I'm doing good. I'm excited to talk to you. You, for some of our listeners, probably are not aware, but you are but I'll use the word luminary, a legend in the industry. For several reasons. For one, you created the game Yar's Revenge. You worked on the Atari 2600. You created Yar's Revenge. You worked on Indiana Jones, which is, during my research, I think it was like the first licensed game ever. Which is crazy.
Movie to game conversion.
Wow. Which is insane. And then most legendary, or maybe most infamously, E.T.
Correct.
Yeah.
Did all three of those games.
Cool. Well, just to sort of set things up, I'd love to talk to you about your history, how you got started in the industry. When you broke into the industry, there was barely an industry. So, like, what was that journey like? How did you end up at Atari?
I ended up at Atari through a very long and circuitous route, none of which was ever aimed at Atari. But, and I'll detail that very elaborately in my upcoming book, of course. But long story short, I was raised to be a game designer, although I didn't realize it because I was always very curious. I loved games and I loved playing with games growing up and tweaking the game. I always made up new rules for games. I felt the games weren't cool enough. I wanted to make them cooler. I would invent ways to play, but I never got involved with computers. I put off getting involved with computers until late in my college career. And then once I touched computers, I thought, oh my God, this is the thing for me. So I didn't touch a computer till the middle of my sophomore year. And like a year and a half, two and a half years later, I had a master's degree in computer engineering. I just thought, holy crap, computers were just the answer for me, right?
Uh-huh.
I don't have to read long meandering books or write ridiculous papers. I can just solve puzzles and write programs. And that solved my academic issues. And then I went to Hewlett Packard, and I was so bored at Hewlett Packard, and everything that I had loved about computing had disappeared, and it was very depressing, actually. But I used to act out a lot because, most people don't know this about me, but I'm quite a character when I work. And so I sort of act out and do some odd things.
Uh-huh.
And so someone was telling a Howard story at home to their wife, and their wife said, wow, what he does, that's what goes on all the time where I work. And so I said, oh, well, where does she work? And he said, well, she works at Atari. That was the first time, that moment was the first time it ever occurred to me that Atari was a place you could go and work. I mean, I knew they made video games, but I wasn't even that into video games at the time. I just thought, wow, I'd like to go work at a place where I'd be having more fun and more excited about working. And when I went there and I talked my way into an interview, and I interviewed there, and they were doing the kind of work that I had really specialized in college, which was real-time microprocessor-based control system. And I just loved doing that kind of work, and doing it on games seemed like a great idea. And I was very good at that. And this was exactly what they were looking for. So it seemed like a match made in heaven.
Yeah.
And then they rejected me.
Oh, really?
Wow.
Yeah, they did not hire me. They rejected me. So when they called me up to give me the rejection, I was sitting at my desk with my manager like 10 feet in front of me, because we were just like in bullpens, there wasn't even cubicles. These were just bullpens. You'd have like 6 desks in one area. And one of the standard issue pieces of equipment at Hewlett Packard was earmuffs, because it was just a big, wide open, noisy environment.
Uh-huh.
So,
wait, Atari called you at your job at Hewlett Packard?
Right. I was working at Hewlett Packard at the time. And so the hiring manager called me up to tell me they weren't going to make me an offer.
Uh-huh.
And which I appreciated, because it gave me the chance to argue with him. And I basically I said, why? Why do you think? This seems like a perfect match. And we went back and forth over a number of things. And ultimately, I wore him down and took a cut in pay and went on probation to be able to have a chance to go to Atari.
Wow.
Over time, I became one of the notable characters at Atari, I believe. It's fair to say. And it became a very amusing story, an anecdote, the idea that Atari had actually rejected me originally.
Yeah, no, that sounds like a story where you're arguing with the hiring manager. It feels like it shouldn't work, but feels like that should just get you fired quicker. But that's an amazing story.
Yeah, you willed yourself into that. That's incredible.
Yeah.
I knew this was a place I had to be. Once I got the idea of what Atari was, just my initial idea of what Atari was, I knew this was a place that I absolutely had to be. So I was going to do whatever I had to do to get in there.
Sure.
And then once I got in there, I realized it really was the place that I absolutely had to be, even more so than I had imagined. And I was already imagining where I had to be. It was just
right.
It was an amazing opportunity for me in my life, and totally shaped the rest of my life in so many ways that I'm still discovering.
Sure. Well, it's interesting because like Atari has this interesting mystique around it, and definitely has this legend about, hot tub parties on the roof and like people doing drugs in the bathrooms. And like, was it really as insane as those stories make it sound?
Well, it wasn't really like that, because the hot tub parties were closer to the bathroom and the drug parties were on the roof. So
it's flipped.
So it's pretty much right on. Yeah, it was. It was a wild and crazy environment. And it was amazing, and it was very productive, and it was creative, but we were launching a new medium. That doesn't happen that often. It happened even now with the rate of technology. It happens occasionally, but an actual new medium. We have new ways. We go from records to tapes to 8 tracks to CDs, but it's still music. right? Music is the medium.
Right.
Video games was a brand new medium. It was taking a fundamentally passive device, which is the television, which just turned people into zombies on their couch, and it made it interactive. It made it an active thing. So now you could yell at your TV and you could interact while you're being a zombie on your couch. And so it was really, I felt it was a very important thing to do in a lot of ways. And the idea of being able to be a pioneer in something that new and that fresh was super exciting.
Yeah. My understanding is that the Atari 2600 was a pain in the ass to develop for, because it was basically designed for Pong and combat, and like that was about it. And every other game you guys made was sort of just doing tricks with the system that it wasn't designed for. Is that your understanding? Was it really hard to work with?
Absolutely. It was brutal. I mean, it didn't even have a bitmap. I don't know how sophisticated your listeners are, but most game machines have a bitmap, so you can just put stuff in the display area, and then the machine automatically puts it up on the screen. On the VCS, you had to actually be controlling the electron gun as it scanned across the screen, because there wasn't any automatic anything. I mean, they had cost reduced it down to the point where it hardly had anything, but it also had hardly any limits. Because sometimes when people make a more sophisticated version of something, they give you all this, what they call functionality, but actually what it does, it constricts the way you can use the machine. Yeah. And what they did with the 2600 would just create an open tool kind of thing that didn't seem to have that much capability, but it could do, like you say, combat and ultimately Space Invaders. It could just do a few things they thought. But as people when you take just creative force and give it an open tool, you'll find interesting stuff. And what you had at Atari, the kind of people that it drew, was just technically astute, but wildly creative people, and very interesting people. I mean, just really interesting people. That was just, the characters and the people at Atari was just amazing. Every day you wanted to go to work, not just to do what you were doing, but to see what other people were going to do on the system and off the system. It was just amazing. I mean, there's the classic story, the bathroom story, I think you were kind of alluding to, which is that there was a lot of people when they first get there, particularly in the engineering area. Occasionally, you would see people walking in and out of the women's room, but a number of them were men. You'd think, okay, so because this wasn't about transition or anything like that, I didn't really get what it was. And then I did find out what was going on ultimately, which was in the women's room, there was like this little lounge on the way to the women's room. And in that lounge, there was a couch, and that was like a little anteroom area, and people used that to get stoned. So there was a lot of pot that got smoked in that area. So usually if you saw a man coming out of the women's room, they were stoned. With the woman, it's 50-50 shot, depending on how much time she spent in the anteroom between the doors. But any guy who came out of there, you could pretty much figure they were wasted. It was kind of an interesting scenario.
Did that bother any of the ladies? Were they like, hey, I need to go to the bathroom? Like, you guys are crowding the space?
Well, no, they could go. I mean, it's just like walking through an office before you get to the restroom. The real restroom door was inside there.
Yeah.
Right? So it didn't obstruct anyone, except for the fact that it subjected them to clouds of marijuana smoke.
Yeah.
So you could say on that level, it was a tad intrusive.
Yeah.
The truth is that most people who really weren't into that sort of culture didn't stay in the department very long. It didn't make much sense to try. And there were other places you could work around Atari and things like that.
Yeah.
But for people who really couldn't deal with that kind of environment, it didn't make much sense to be in that kind of environment, because it was very much that kind of environment. When I interviewed there, it was made clear to me that the pot was a significant presence in the area. So was I okay with that?
Yeah. So you're like, all right, pot. And then little as you know, there's more stuff even beyond that going on, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Absolutely. As time went on, so did the variety of pharmaceuticals. Absolutely.
Yeah. Did you find
Go ahead,
that
Alex.
that kind of environment was conducive to your creativity and what you found that you could do?
For me, it was. For me, what was stimulating creatively wasn't so much the drugs. I don't think they hurt me. But I think what was stimulating to me was the people while we were doing drugs, or the people around. It was such an amazing group. It's like a bunch of weird, wacky molecules bouncing off of each other and off the walls. And and as the temperature goes up with the pressure, there's just more interaction and more volatility. And so it was a very dynamic and exciting environment, but it kept you on your toes. And the machine always was always posing a challenge. Right. So the thing is, because our brains were like all attuned to this hardware, we were so imprinted with the code. Everybody knew every bit of the instruction set of the 6502 processor and the Atari chip. And we would just think of weird ways to map the stuff that was in it back and forth. And what could you do? It was so limited, so ridiculous. But there would be some people who found some cool things to do, some interesting things to do. And once that happened a couple of times, it gave everybody else the idea of like, oh, it's not just for the kind of things we've been thinking about. There's more you can do with this. It's just nobody really thought of it. So it really was this environment where you could do something no one has ever done before.
Yeah.
That's in a very evolved technology environment. It's hard to find places like that where you can, as things get elaborated, the scope of what hasn't been done yet gets smaller and smaller and smaller. It's always infinite on one hand, but it gets smaller and smaller as stuff is done. It's harder to find new stuff to do. But this was all groundbreaking. I mean, the goal of making games at Atari when I was there was to do something new. Right now, the goal is to elaborate on existing proven designs and just do more of the same thing. You don't see brand new stuff that often. That's kind of a shame. That's also a product of a mature industry. But back then, the goal was to create something new. Just show somebody something no one's ever seen.
Do you feel like you did that with some of your games, like Yar's Revenge or Indiana Jones?
Honestly, I feel I did that with every one of my games. I think every one of my games was groundbreaking in some significant ways. I mean, Yar's Revenge set a lot of standards that went on to become, standard stuff. I mean, Yar's Revenge was the first video game with a pause mode.
Was it really? I didn't know that.
Wow.
Nobody had put a pause mode in a game before that. And why would they, right? Whenever a new medium comes out, the first thing you do in the new medium is copy the successes in the previous medium, right? That's the first thing you do. So the first thing they did with home games was copy coin-op games, and that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
But, nobody would ever put a pause in a coin-op game because you don't want to stop the flow of quarters. You need to turn people around. You need to keep coins dropping. And pause mode is just the opposite of that. So people tended to copy that. So again, the idea of a pause mode never occurred. There were a number of things that I realized you could probably do in home games that weren't appropriate to coin-op games. And so I tried to do that. But Yar's had a lot of stuff. It had first full screen explosion, elaborate death sequences, a really elaborate sound, multi-layered sound environment. It shows its code on the screen, which is something no other game had ever done before or probably since. That was just a wacky thing. And that was a result of doing something easily. The whole glittering ion zone in Yar's Revenge is actually the code just thrown into a couple of registers because I didn't want to have extra graphics. I can use the code for graphics just as well as anything else if I have a randomized image.
Yeah.
So this was the kind of thinking that you had to do.
Were your coworkers, do you remember getting feedback on Yar's? Like, were your coworkers impressed? Was general
eventually they were
excited?
Eventually they were. Yar's Revenge was real interesting because the game originally was supposed to be a coin-op game called Star Castle. And I knew from the beginning it wasn't going to work. It was just going to suck. And I thought, this is my big opportunity. I always saw games as broadcast medium. When I got into Atari and got the chance to make a VCS game, I thought, all right, here we go. I want to do something really cool. And they gave me this game. And I read the manual and I looked it over. And I didn't know everything about what was going on there at that point, but I knew enough to know that that game was really going to suck. And I could not afford to have my first game suck. So I went to the manager, the guy who I had talked into hiring me. So I said, I begged and pleaded, please let me in, let me go. I'll do anything to get me in there. And he did. He brought me in, and then he gives me an assignment, and after a couple of days, and the first thing I do is I tell him, that's not going to be any good. That's not going to work. But I didn't just say, that sucks. I said, look, I don't think this is going to work. I said, but here's what I could do. Here's what I think would work better on this system. And I actually laid it out to him. And he saw what I was talking about, and he understood it because he could program the machine also. And so he said, okay, go for it. So I started to make my design for the game.
Uh-huh.
And after a while, after a couple of months, I had it pretty well implemented. And there it was. And it did suck. It was horrible. It wasn't working because I had a horrible controller scheme because I was so tied into the controller scheme from the original game. And I finally let that go, and that forced me to have to move something else into a gameplay sequence that was a button on the controller originally. And in that process, it turned into a really compelling game. And once that happened, people started to get really excited about it, which got me really excited.
Sure.
Here's my first game, and here we go. And it wasn't working. And then we made the real big changes to it. And now suddenly people are digging it. I mean, people are digging it to the point where one of the guys from Coin-Op was talking about maybe doing a Coin-Op of Yar's Revenge. And so
wow,
we made home versions of Coin-Op games. Nobody wanted to make a Coin-Op game from a home version game. That was unheard of. But it was inspiring. It was like there was something about it that was compelling. And they tested the crap out of the game. I mean, it was the most tested game in Atari history because there was someone at Atari who was trying to kill the game.
Oh, really?
There was someone who was trying to stop the game for whatever reason. So every time it was about to release, there's another problem. And so they had another test. They'd have a focus test, another focus test. They'd have these different tests. It was the most tested game at Atari.
Do you know why they had it in for Yar's Revenge?
I don't know exactly why. And I'm a therapist, for God's sake. I can't really tell. I could give some guesses, but they would just be blind guesses. But obviously there was some issue this person had with the game or with the process of how this was moving forward. But I wanted to get my game out. Yeah. Right? A lot of drugs at Atari, but the greatest drug at Atari was being able to go into a store and see your game on display on the store's display thing where they have the video games there. If your game was plugged in and playing as the demo game, and then to see kids fighting over the controller to get a chance to play your game, that was the best high there was at Atari. And I was seeking that high. I couldn't quite get there. And it was just about to go. Everybody loved the game. Here we go. Well, let's release it. Okay, here we go. Here comes the game. Oh, no, there's something wrong. Okay, we're not going to release it. We're going to do some testing. Got great test results. Okay, that's good. Well, now we're going to release the game. Oh, wait, there's another concern.
Little did they know, they probably just made the game stronger in the end.
The game didn't really change that much from when they started testing was the thing. Wow. I was working on Raiders of the Lost Ark, my next game. I wasn't doing anything to change Yars. Every time they tested, it tested fine. And because none of these questions that came up, the complaints were vague. They weren't like, it has to be this or it has to be that. They were saying, well, there's a question with long-term playability. That was a term that kept coming up. Question of long-term playability. So, but they'd put it in testing, consumer testing. It would come back fine. So ultimately, they did release the game, but I had a bad case of releases interruptus for quite a while and leading up to that.
Sure. Well, so you mentioned Raiders, and while working on Raiders and E.T., you got to meet Steven Spielberg, which is kind of crazy, who was already a legend by that point. What was that experience like?
That was amazing. That was amazing. That's like a whole chapter in the book when I first got to meet Steven Spielberg, because he was my idol, right? This is a guy, I remember watching some of his TV movies and just being really impressed. The Duel, I think, was one of the first ones that he did. It was really great. Jaws blew me away. And Close Encounters totally impacted me on many levels. And so he was someone who literally had created memories in my life, significant moments. So to go meet him was really exciting. And I got to go there. But the really cool thing was I'm in San Jose, and I don't know if people know California geography that much, but he's down in Hollywood or Burbank. So that's like about 400 miles away. So I had to get up super early, take a plane, take a cab through rush hour traffic to get to his office for a 9:30 meeting. I got there, I show up, and the first thing they tell me, his secretary tells me that the meeting has been moved to 3:30. I'm like, what? I mean, I flew here for this meeting on a commercial airline. I have reservations to go back. He says, well, we're really looking forward to talking with you, but we had to move the meeting to 3:30. So I got 6 hours to just sort of wait around. But I happened to be in Warner Brothers Studios at the time. So I just said, well, can I just sort of cruise around? They said, sure, go ahead. Just be back at 3:30.
You're really good at talking your way into things, it sounds like.
Oh
I am much better at talking my way into things than I am at talking my way out of things, unfortunately. But it's true. That has happened many times. So I got to spend an incredible day just cruising around unescorted Warner Brothers Studios, which for a film TV nerd like me is just a dream come true. And then I get to hang out with Steven Spielberg and have a private audience.
Yeah.
That was a pretty good day.
Did it seem like he got games? Was he into games at the time?
He was totally into games. He had games in his office. He had video games in his office. He was into games. He played games. Video games fascinated him. And I was there because what I was doing was, this was an interview. They were going to see, they needed someone to do Raiders of the Lost Ark. And so I was chosen to be one of the first candidates to go down because Spielberg had to approve who was going to do Raiders. So I flew down there. We had a talk. And at one point in the talk, I even called him an alien. I explained to him that I had this whole theory about how he's an alien. Did he want to hear it? He's like, yeah. So I laid it out for him. I actually had this theory that he was part of an alien advance team that's culturalizing, the planet to be prepared to meet aliens in a peaceable way. And so I told him I figured he's the production arm and his marketing people are doing like a great job because the movies that favor aliens are being shown everywhere, all over the place. I said, nice job. I just want to tell you, you guys are doing great. Really impressed, and so he didn't kick me out of the office. So that was good.
Oh my
and in fact, I think that's what got me the job. I mean, I also showed him Yars and he really liked Yars.
Yeah.
He thought that was kind of cool. And we talked for a while, but I think the alien thing really kind of cinched it.
Yeah, this guy knows I'm an alien and he's cool with it. So let's go. I guess. So I want to move on to E.T. I know we're kind of running out of time already, but E.T.'s story has been definitely well documented, so we don't need to rehash the whole thing. But I know, they gave you 5 weeks to make this game, and normally it takes 6 to 9 months to make a game.
Correct.
Know why they were on such a strict deadline? Or why didn't they just start sooner? They had to know what the timeline was.
That's a whole nother chapter in the book.
So read this book is what you're saying.
It's well, I mean, I'm writing a book about my Atari experiences and stuff, so that's coming up. But in there, I do detail the idea. I mean, because that's a big question, right? Why 5 weeks? It doesn't make any sense to do it in 5 weeks, right? But here's why. It was sort of in a squeeze play, right? So on the one hand, you have the deadline of making the Christmas market, which was mandatory. You have to make the Christmas market to really hit, because if you miss that, you're just going to miss a tremendous amount of sales. And they just felt it wasn't worth it if we missed the Christmas market. So if you're going to make the Christmas market, you have to have a game into manufacturing September 1st.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so on the other side, so when do we start the game? Well, they started negotiating. I don't know exactly when they started negotiating for the rights to this, but they negotiated for quite a while. And they negotiated and they negotiated and they negotiated. But when they were finished negotiating, it was July 27th. And so July 27th to September 1st, 5 weeks and 1 day. And that one day was half consumed by finishing the negotiations. And then in the afternoon, late in the afternoon, I got a call from the CEO that launched this whole thing. He says, hey, we want you to do ET.
Yeah.
He goes, can you do it for September 1st? And I said, absolutely I can, provided we reach the right agreement. And I talked myself into another thing right
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, and then you
So-
killed yourself for like 5 weeks. So I don't know. I feel bad for you, but
Yeah.
again, that story is pretty well documented. But I know ET was kind of blamed for the crash, which probably undeservingly. But there were a lot of copies out there. There's that documentary about digging up ET from the landfill, which is totally worth watching, by the way, and you're in it.
Yeah, Atari
What
Game
I'm
Over.
curious-
It's a good movie.
Yeah, it's great. But then that
If
was
I'm
your
allowed to
last
say
game.
that.
You're allowed to say it.
Yeah.
That was your
If
last
I'm
game.
allowed
Do you
to say
think
that,
you,
yeah.
you think
That
you
wasn't
would've
my
kept
last
making
game.
games?
It
No?
was the last game I released for Atari while I was at Atari.
Mhm.
And the thing is, yeah, it's known as the worst game of all time and the thing that killed the industry. And in fact, the title of my upcoming book is Once Upon Atari, How I Made History by Destroying an Industry. It's not really true, but I think it's fun to think. So,
Yeah.
And, is it really the worst game of all time? I don't think so. I really don't believe it's the worst game of all time. A lot of people don't really consider it the worst game of all time. But the truth is, I prefer when people do identify it as the worst game of all time, because Yari's Revenge, my first game, is frequently considered one of the best games of all time. So as long as ET is the worst game, I have the greatest range of any game
Oh,
design.
yeah.
So I'm totally good with that. But I went on to do some more work and things like that. I was pretty burnt out after ET. I did a 10-month kind of a pretty rough development on Raiders. And it was right after that I went right into the 5 weeks on ET. So I was totally burnt out. Took a while to recover from that.
Do you think you would have made more games or stayed in the industry longer if it hadn't been for ET?
I would have released probably a couple more games at Atari. I might have gone on in the industry. I don't know. I don't know. ET was a pretty big mind bend. And that whole trip. But you have to remember also that all the weird feedback on it and stuff didn't come till much later.
Yeah.
Later, there's a long time. But I worked on another game that was, I like doing original action games. That's what I really like doing. And I was working on a multi-screener action game of my own design called Saboteur. And that was actually nearing completion. And then they decided they wanted to do the A-Team license. They bought the A-Team license. And they wanted to use my game for the A-Team license. So we did a conversion to make it more A-Team thematic. And so we did that. And then they decided, no, we're not going to go with that. So we switched it back to Saboteur. And then they thought, well, maybe we'll do the A-Team. And then Atari fell apart. So it didn't. So that game did not see the light of day until like 20 years later. That's another one of my records. I think I have the longest game development. I have the shortest game development with ET, but I also have the longest game development because the game that I developed in like 83 and 84 wasn't released until like 2005 because someone got the ROM and they found the code for it. I know a guy who actually published the game and started selling it. And I think the game came out on one of the retro systems also. So Yari's Revenge and Saboteur are the games that are typically on the retro systems that I did. But that game eventually did get released. So I have the longest and the shortest development.
Wow. That's incredible.
Cool. Well, Howard, I know we're out of time. We're getting the call that we got to end it. Unfortunately, I wish we could talk forever, but your book, Once Upon Atari, right? When does that come out?
That's coming out probably late this summer or early fall.
Cool. And then you're also featured in the Netflix series High Score, which is I got a pre-screener of that. And it's pretty cool. It's worth watching.
How does it look? I haven't seen it yet. What did they?
Oh, it looks great. Yeah, you look great. There's some cool animation and stuff going on, and you do a good job. They use all your best
shoot. It was a really, really fun shoot. And Ben, this was really great talking with you. I really appreciate it. And Alyx, thank you too.
Yeah, thank you, sir.
I appreciate it.
It's incredible.
And thanks for watching, everybody. We'll be right back. And welcome back to the Game Informer Show. Ben Reeves here. Still got the same crew. We're going to do some community emails. You guys ready for that?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And what are we doing here? Do you guys understand what this is?
It's two things I love.
Is this when people send in questions, comments, suggestions, dares, games, etc. to podcast@gameinformer.com.
That's exactly what this is.
Ooh.
Podcast@gameinformer.com if you want to send us questions or whatever, and we will read those.
Yo, we haven't had a dare in a while. I would love send in your dares. Let's see what we
Yeah.
got. Let's have some fun. Let's get it.
Are you daring our readers?
I triple dog dare you.
Oh, now they have to.
You got to do it.
Now you have to, guys. I'm sorry. That's how dares
Please
work.
send them in to Alyx, for Alyx specifically. Alyx
course.
Dares. This is a new segment idea, Ben. Just Alyx Dares segment.
Shouldn't it be like Dare Alyx because they're daring Alyx?
Yo, we could get a whole
Yeah,
like,
but I like the idea. Alyx Dares makes it sound like Alyx is more like a superhero or something.
like a
which-
secret agent. Yeah.
Yeah, I think the branding on that's a little cleaner.
If I wasn't worried
Okay.
about the pandemic, we could get a whole like Loiter Squad, Eric Andre show vibe going on that I'd be here for it.
Oh, Alex, you're gonna have to lick so many gross things.
I don't want to do it. I don't want to do it.
Well, I'm sorry. You opened this Pandora's box.
There it is.
All right, that's podcastgameinformer.com. You'll get emails such as this one from Jared B. He writes in, he says, "Hello, GI crew. I recently have been able to play through a bunch of classic games, including Metroid Prime 3, Zelda Twilight Princess, and most recently, Paper Mario The Thousand Year Door. These games have been a major blind spot for me as I'm a huge fan of all of the franchises, but I haven't played them before. Thousand Year Door in particular was a delight to play. The characters were charming and memorable, the combat was super fun, and each zone in the game is unique. And even the final boss of the game offered more of a challenge than I expected. All right, dude, get a room." Anyway, he says his question is, what is a classic game that you've never played that you hadn't played before, but then you did play and it actually lived up to the hype?
Also, can we take a second to appreciate that he called Twilight Princess a classic game? I'm
Yeah,
only
that made me
26,
feel-
but that made me feel real old.
Yeah, same here.
I mean,
I'm also
Prime
only
3
26.
Metroid Prime 3 is about the same age, isn't it? It's even newer? Or no?
Yeah. No. Oh
It's
wait. No,
it was a
Metroid
Wii-
Prime 3 was a
never-
Wii game, and Twilight Princess was a Wii U straddling game, right?
It was GameCube Wii
It
straddling.
was GameCube.
Oh,
It
you're
launched
right.
on the Wii.
Yeah. Yeah. Jeez.
And I think Prime 3 came out like a year later.
Yeah.
That's
Anyway,
anyhow.
So I have two sort of answers to this one. One is actually on a topic we were talking about before. I never played, despite loving Metroid style games, I never played Castlevania Symphony of the Night until I mean it wasn't super recently at this point, but it a few years ago or several years ago I went back to it after getting all of this praise, and I was thinking like, look, I like Super Metroid. I like that formula. Castlevania's never quite been my cup of tea in the same regard. And Symphony of the Night is super good. Surprise. And then my other one is actually also something that we kind of touched on already. Ben, you mentioned Roberta Williams, who worked on the King's Quest series, but Sierra also had another adventure game series called Quest for Glory back in the day that I was a big fan of, which this is one that I did play, but went back and replayed it earlier this year. And man, that series still holds up. It's this weird mixture of like RPG and point and click adventure game that really isn't there. It's a genre fusion that hasn't quite been done in the same way since that series. It's kind of amazing. Like it's got D&D style like stats and character classes and all that stuff, but it's in a world with puzzles and stuff that are like point and click adventure. Anyway, I really loved it when I was younger, and then I went back to replay it thinking, I wonder if this holds up. It does.
you mentioned point and click adventure. Like, I was never into point and click adventures as a kid, but then Broken Age came out. Man, that was a while ago now. But
Yeah.
after that released, I was kind of into the idea of adventure games and even older ones. And I guess I should retract the point and click part because this isn't a point and click game. But Grim Fandango is a game that I had missed, and a lot of people said was like the best game of that. Was it 98 when it came out? I can't remember. but
I don't know the year.
people said that was like the best game ever. And I went back and played the remaster when that came out, and I had a really good time with it. Like, it's definitely aged. Like, there's parts of the game where you're like, this puzzle doesn't make any sense, and there's no way to solve this. But the world is so interesting, and the humor is there. It's Tim Schafer game, so it's really a funny game. But yeah, that was a fun game to catch up on. Anybody else?
I'm gonna piggyback here on the Quest for Glory games. When I was growing up, I played the King's Quest games because that's all I could get, and the Quest for Glory games were really hard to find. So I had to go play Quest for Glory 1 at a friend's house. It's the only one I had access to, and I thought it was amazing. I think it was again, Joe is correct. I don't think I've ever seen it done yet before, where you have this kind of combination of you get to use your D&D style like intimidating strength or stealthy roguiness in King's Quest kind of situations in town, but then when you're in the battlefield, you have traditional turn-based turn-based fights. They're not really, they're action battles with like these different creatures and stuff, and you're like, wow, I got a cool new sword, and like I've never seen that done again since then. And I got to play one a little bit again at a friend's house as a kid. I think he played Final Fantasy Legends 2 on my Game Boy while I played that. Okay, we trade.
Nice.
We did the trade off. Yeah. And after that, I was like, I didn't even know there was a 2 and a 3 until years ago, where I was like, all right, now I can get them all. All right, I'm doing it. Trust me, if you like RPGs in general, you're gonna freaking love these games. And like, they've never done it again. I can't believe that. Like, they haven't even made like a Kickstarter. Hey, remember Quest for Glory? We're doing it again. I can't. Where is that? Where is it?
Yeah. So if you're interested, they are available on Steam. Steam has the Quest for Glory collection. That's 1 through 5. 5 is a different thing. But 1 through 4 1 through 4 are great. But there's another interesting thing where so like 1 and 2 were initially released as EGA games. Like limited palette, limited graphical capability, right? And I think they were even like text interface, maybe.
They like remade the first one, right? When VGA,
right? So Sierra officially remade the first one in VGA graphics, so it looks more like the Sierra games that you would remember. The second one in the Quest for Glory collection is still in that weird EGA style, but there is a group out there that was that sort of with the mission of remaking old adventure games. I think it's what is it? Is that AGDQ, Anonymous Game Developers or something? Anyway, AGD Interactive, I think is what they were called. That went back and remade games like King's Quest 3, King's Quest 2. Wait, maybe not 3. Maybe they just did 2. This is all boring. The point is,
this is fascinating. This is good.
Right, you can go out there and download for free the VGA remake of Quest for Glory 2 that still works with like your character import file from the first game. And that's another thing we didn't even talk about. Your character carries over from game to game.
So it's like insane for that time period.
Yeah. So it's like the stats that you have at the end of Quest for Glory 1 carry over into 2, carry over into 3, carry over into 4. You can have a persistent character. At one point, your character can like get upgraded into a paladin, and then you're just a paladin for the rest of the series. Like, it's really something. So, bottom line, buy Quest for Glory collection on Steam, and then download the free VGA remake of 2.
Cool.
Oh, I thought of another game.
Sorry, that was a real tangent.
No, that was good.
It's good.
That was actionable
awesomeness. Yeah.
I don't know why I thought of this, but when the SNES Classic came out, I looked through that library. I'm like, yeah, I've played most of these, except for the one game that I hadn't ever played at all was Earthbound. And I had a really fun time going through Earthbound, and it really holds up. Like, gameplay wise, graphically, it definitely looks dated, but the humor on that is super funny, charming game that if you're looking for just an easy RPG to play through, like, that one still holds up and is still pretty fun.
For sure.
It's real charming.
Oh, real yeah, that's the best part about it. Like, I knew it was a funny game, but I guess I didn't believe anybody when they told me that, because when I started playing, I was like, oh, this is actually funny. Like one of those surprising, like, hey, charming, silly games. Anyway, Earthbound. It's worth it.
Yeah. Cool. On that same level of SNES games, hope you guys like Metroid talk, because you're going to get more of it. But Super Metroid, man, I've been playing that on Switch. I've beat 2 or 3 bosses. I had to stop playing a little bit when Ghost was coming out and we were working on stuff. But oh my god, it's like it's
Wait, hang on. This is your first time playing Super Metroid?
like this far into it. Yeah. Yep. Yeah, man.
Okay.
You forget
Just
I grew up on movie tie-in games and Mario. So
How'd you get hired?
yeah.
I didn't-
What idiot hired me? Who said looked at my stuff and said it was good?
See, Alex, I'm actually I like hearing that though, because for me, like, I would argue that Super Metroid is probably one of the closest things to a perfect game that's ever been made. And certainly I mean, I could even look it up. I'm sure it's in my top 5 just of all time games. But for me, it's so connected to time and place also, like I played that when it came out on my Super Nintendo. Like, I am glad to hear that going back to it today, it still shines.
Yeah.
With no prior experience.
Yeah. And bear with me for a second. It invokes very similar feelings that I had when I watched Citizen Kane for the first time, where I was like, oh, but hold on, bear with me. Because like I know people say it's the greatest movie, but I feel like there's the counterculture where it's like, oh, it's so old, like blah blah blah. But it was amazing to me seeing the narrative tropes and structure of that movie and seeing like, oh, like they still use these today. Same with like Lawrence of Arabia. Whereas Super Metroid, it's like this is feeling that and feeling that game and because I love Ori, I've played Hollow Knight, like I'm fully in on. I love Guacamelee, like I really like the 2D Metroidvania style. So going back to it and actually seeing where that originated from, I mean technically Metroid, but was perfected in Super Metroid, has been a blast. And like there's some moments of SNES jank a little bit, but really it's just a smooth, fun experience. And the level of secrecy, I don't know how you guys did it back in the day of finding secrets of trying like 100% a game, because like I don't know how, like especially in that one where I'll just randomly be shooting a wall and oh, there's a health canister that I desperately need to fight this boss, but I would have had no clue where it was until I shot at it. You know what I mean?
Have you gotten the scanner?
Yes.
The X-ray scanner?
Yes.
Yeah,
and that's
helpful.
helped.
You just have to scan everything.
Yeah. No
That's
wonder my playthrough's at like 60 hours or whatever.
I would argue that there are things about Super Metroid that Super Metroid still does better than some modern games that come out now, that they just sort of don't understand why it worked so well. Like things about, they had a lot of one-way doors that you could walk through in Super Metroid, so that kind of like locked you off from having to backtrack super far. So you like knew, oh, whatever I need to do, it must be here. Like super smart things that that some modern indie games just have not picked up on for some reason.
Yeah.
So I'm now that the big release, we have a moment to breathe, I feel like in the release schedule. I think I'm gonna pick that back up, and because I remember the last time I played it, I was a little lost. I was in like the sand. I can't remember, it's not Brinstar, but I was in the sand world trying to get up and through that. So I still have a little ways to go, but it is, like I said, it's a surreal feeling picking that game up, being a fan of the Metroidvania genre in 2020 and being like, oh, this is where this all came from, and it still feels amazing. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah. Congrats, man. That's awesome. Glad you're finally playing that. Great. Cheers for Alex. Alan from Chattanooga, Tennessee. He writes in, he says, before the summer, when E3 got canceled, there was so much talk about how companies would be doing their own digital events because E3 was canceled, basically. He says, well, now it's August, and many of the companies have done just that. I was hoping to get your retrospective take on how effective these events have been. I personally could not keep up with all the shows and didn't watch many of them. And then he kind of runs through a list of like some of the stuff and whether or not he was into it or not. But basically, the main point is, I was just curious if you think that this summer has proven that there is value to having an E3 to concentrate all of the gaming announcements, or if you think it kind of works the way we've been doing it.
For me, I think my big takeaway there is, and maybe this is just because I'm a writer, but I think it really highlights the value of editing, because when things are all happening during E3 week, I understand that companies don't like their game or their big announcement sharing the spotlight with other things. But I think that because of that situation, it really forced publishers to focus on the beats of theirs that are the most interesting, the most important, and then editing out the things that are sort of shrugs, right? Or waiting for later in the summer or a press release or something for those. Like, so in general, E3 sort of allowed the best to rise to the top. I felt like it was more concentrated, interesting content. I think the problem that we're facing with all these different events is now with everyone feeling like with every publisher feeling like they have to do a digital event, for some publishers, multiple digital events over the course of the summer. I feel like there's a sense of bloat to those events that has me wondering, I'm almost a little resentful that they're wasting my time with some of it.
Wow.
I think an interesting example of that for me, Joe, is the Cyberpunk Nightwire stuff. They've done two of those, and it's Cyberpunk. Like, I'm super excited about the game, and please show me more of it. I'm all on board. But those presentations have been, I don't know what, half an hour or something. But I don't feel like they've been like super meaty, interesting content. There's been a couple of things here and there, but if it were an E3 press conference, they would like come out guns blazing and showed you some awesome stuff. And this is just sort of like spread out. And I think because there was no E3, we're highlighting these things on a level that we wouldn't normally. So those Nightwire things were like, this must be a big thing. We're going to cover it.
I think that's true, but I also think that their audience is different. Like, I think the Night City Live or whatever the Cyberpunk thing is, like, I don't think those are for us. I don't think that those are for people like us who are especially plugged in to that game's development. Who've sat in on demos, who've read cover stories about it. I feel like those are for people who've heard about that Cyberpunk game and are excited for it and are tuning in to like learn more about it, maybe.
Yeah. And so then is the problem just on us as like our expectations of what this is going to be are off, or we're expecting something big because there was no E3?
I wasn't thinking of the Night City stuff specifically as much as I was like all of these different like Xbox and Sony events and things like that, right? Where those are the ones to me that feel the most like.
Mm-hmm. Well, you could use those as an example. There's been like 2 or 3 PlayStation ones and Xbox ones where if you took those like an accordion and just squashed them all together into one press conference, and like you said, edited out the stuff that was less interesting, I think you'd have an amazing E3 conference.
Yeah,
definitely. Yeah,
I think from. Go by all means, Alex.
Okay, I'll quickly. I think for me, it's why I love, and bear with me. I'm pulling a lot of references out of video games here, but for me,
so Citizen Kane.
Yeah, exactly. What actually was Rosebud? This season has been very much why I like football or something like the World Cup compared to baseball, where it's very much when we had E3. It was that Super Bowl moment. It was that this is this set week that the hype is going to be absolutely unreal, whether earned or not. And like, this is this concentrated blast that is going to sustain us until fall. Whereas now it's this drip of information, like you said, that is, not the sexiest stuff that is focusing on maybe some games that wouldn't be on stage in E3. And I feel like it spaces it out so that hype can't be not only contained or maintained, but it's like, I don't know, like how many times have you guys watched something in this post E3 world and gone like, oh, like snap, like let's go, like, like have those like super hype moments, and I can maybe count 1 or 2 maybe, and I think the best to have done it is the PlayStation 5 thing with Ratchet. I think Ratchet's the only time I've gone like, oh, like snap, seeing that game on the PS5. I loved what I saw from Halo and that, but like, I don't know, like I just miss those. I miss that hype. You know what I mean? And I just don't feel like this captures it. I get it from a developer standpoint. I bet they're loving it because they're getting sustained view counts. Like I bet like if you go and look at those Night City wires, they're each probably in the millions. But It just doesn't feel the same.
Yeah, it's a good point. So next year, do you guys want? This is a big question. Do you want E3 or do you want something like that? Do you even think that would happen? Because a lot of developers have had an opportunity to experience a year without E3. Are they going to keep doing it that way?
Give this to Dan.
Do I want to see E3 come back? Absolutely. I think, despite this year, I think a lot of people are very disappointed with what they've seen from these presentations, and I think some of that has to do with COVID. To be honest with you, a lot of stuff probably fell out of these and was pushed back immensely due to the year being a wash, essentially. And I don't think that's going to distract these publishers and developers from digital events. I think that's going to be on their end. They're probably going to be able to show way more actionable results. And hey, it's all about big data, right? They can see this user and they can tie it to a purchase, even using all kinds of weird algorithms and fun stuff like that. They can say, hey, he watched, he bought the game, he pre-ordered, he did all this stuff. They can. It goes down the algorithm pipe for the user, right? Instead of saying, well, we put on a good presentation. Oh, but we had a gaffe and God knows how much that cost us. Geez, we probably shouldn't do that. We paid like $1 billion zillion to even be in this space in the first place. Why not control the message? We'll still have an Alyx Stadnik moment. We can create hype. Believe me, they can create hype when they want to create hype, when they have something to create hype about. We've got essentially a year down the drain for everybody in every level. And that includes game development, right? Like this has shifted and just destroyed the pipeline for creating games and being able to highlight the best things about those games, right? So what we got this year, I don't think is indicative of what future digital delivery presentation will look like. I don't think we are ever going to go back to E3 physical space in the way that it once was. I just don't. I wish I did because I love E3. I love the Christmas moment. Can the industry still provide a Christmas moment without that physical space? I think it's very possible. I think we've been very lucky to attend these kind of events and we're so used to them. And not everybody, gets that. And now they can be at the event too, right? That's the hype line. Obviously, it's not the same thing, but we are going to be in a different world when we get out of this thing. And whether or not the companies have seen data-driven results from these presentations will dictate the future of game presentation.
Yeah.
The end. Thanks for coming to my TED Talk.
Perfect. Yeah,
well, I think
I don't know. We'll
I think there's another valid question in that in the sense of whether or not E3 comes back by name, because I think before COVID, remember E3 was struggling. People like companies were dropping out of it. There was some issue, like the ESA was not exactly doing a bang up job holding everyone together and like instilling confidence, leaking journalist information, all of that stuff, right? So
Yeah,
I guess
not to interject, PlayStation wasn't going to show up this year anyway.
right.
People don't put that in, factor that in. Like that's
so I think ultimately I'm agreeing with Dan and Alyx. I love that Christmas moment. I hope that there's a way to do it. Whether that is E3 as it has existed for the last 20 plus years, probably not. But yeah,
I mean, there were
a little
things.
bit more. Like just to, I'll give it to you in just one sec, Ben. Like it's just like I think this year some of those reveals that would have been the Merry Christmas. Here's this amazing thing. Here's some nostalgia. Here's another game in this incredible series that you never thought was coming. I think that stuff got pushed, and because they needed stuff to fill space, games that normally wouldn't have been given that kind of billing did end up taking some of that, that noise. And I think people shouldn't expect that to be the road going forward once we have learned how to deal with the global crisis. And there you go, Ben.
I mean, all I was going to say is that there were benefits to E3 that had nothing to do with us. Like there were a lot of, marketing teams or buyers, or I know that there were indie teams that were pitching to people at E3. There were a lot of things that happened behind the closed doors of E3 and reasons for people to come together. So maybe something could pop up like that, but it would be different. But it's so unknown at this point. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see what next year is like. I hope it's a little bit different than this year, but I think online streaming events will probably be a thing going forward as well. And that's all the news that's fit to print.
That was a big question.
That's a good one.
It is a big question.
Very good question.
Here's another big question from Joel Cost from Newmarket, New Hampshire. He says, "Hey, GI crew, what's the most OP animal?"
A manatee.
Dan, a manatee?
A manatee. That's correct.
Is it because it's the most dangerous man is man?
It's because they're so adorable that you couldn't bring yourself to do anything to them. That's the real superpower.
What? But dude, a shark's not going to be like, "Oh, this thing's cute. I'm not going to eat it."
Well, a shark isn't on this podcast and is not answering this question.
So you think, Alex?
It's a to man, it's a hippo, right? Aren't hippos like statistically the most dangerous animal? Like to kill us? Don't they just rip us apart? I don't know.
I mean, the question is, what's the most overpowered animal?
There are many ways to define power.
That's true.
That's true.
That's true.
I
I
think
was
I'm gonna
thinking
say
more
bear.
like a shark versus like a tiger or something.
I'm gonna say a big ass bear. I love them, and they are raw animalistic power, and that's what my spirit animal will be.
I gotta say it's beluga whale. They're just so big. They're just damage sponges. You just, smack away at those things forever and that life bar just goes nowhere.
That is a good point. Do you think a shark, if it really wanted to take down a whale, it could?
Probably not.
Or is it just like,
Probably not
an
a
ant
single
trying
shark.
to fight a human?
It would need a
Like the sheer size of you could they just flap at that thing and the shark would be spinning out of the water, man. Like
Yeah, it's like if you were trying to wrestle Andre the Giant, even if you were like super fit.
exactly like that.
Like-
Yeah.
You just don't stand a chance, right? Man,
Yeah,
that's
I
a
think-
really good answer. I don't know. It's probably just from sheer size. Yeah, that's the most OP animal. Beluga whale. Well, we answered the question.
Yes.
You're welcome.
I got it right.
Joel. Try a harder one next time, please. All right. Jacob Tapp from Internet Land, he writes in, he says, "Oh, what's this?" He says, "I enjoyed the top 3 gaming characters discussion, even if it was hard to fully understand the rules." I don't understand what was hard to understand, but he says, "I think I got it by the end of the podcast." That's great.
That's good. I'm
So
glad we
based
got
on
there.
my understanding, I would like to offer my own list of 3 characters to rank. We got some characters to rank, everybody.
Hey.
You
I'm
wanna
so
play that music?
excited. Do-do-do.
Dan, I'm sure.
I expect to get this answer correct also.
Yes, it will be correct. So he has a list of 3, and he actually supplied his reasons for why he submitted these characters. But his first character is sadly one we've already ranked. His first one is Solid Snake.
He's on there.
And he is on there. So if people are just tuning in for the first time, we have a master list of video game characters. Like every character ever created in the industry is going to end up on this list, and maybe eventually someday. Right now we're at 15, so we're well on our way, almost halfway there. I would say
We really need to post this list on the site, don't we?
we will. I was waiting for it to get a little bit beefier, but it's getting to the point where we probably would. So at the top right now is Ellie from The Last of Us. And at the very bottom is Funky Kong from the Donkey Kong series. From the Donkey Kong series, really. So it's 15 characters long. I'll just list off the top 5. So Ellie from The Last of Us. Number 2 is Kratos. Number 3 is Chun-Li from Street Fighter. And then here's number 4 is our boy Solid Snake from Metal Gear. So that's where we ended up with him. And then 5 is Gladys from Portal.
Can I give some spoilers to listeners? And I'm sorry.
About what?
I don't think Funky Kong is ever gonna. I think he's at the highest he's always gonna be at every.
I don't
week.
agree. I don't agree.
You think-
There's some real.
You think there's some stinkers that are gonna? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Let's see.
If somebody wants to send in a list of like, here's the worst characters of all time, I would
Try to
into
boost
that.
Funky Kong.
Yeah, who can boost Funky Kong?
Give Funky Kong a little cushion down there at the bottom.
That's right. He needs something to sit on. Let's give him some characters to sit on. So yeah, Solid Snake, number 4. I think a solid entry.
Ba-ba!
Yeah,
I don't know if you're gonna wait for reaction on that one.
Yeah, I'm not gonna play ball with that one. Just let's move on.
The second character, Commander Shepard, and he says, speaking of relatable, yeah, that's right. Just like Solid Snake, he says, what character has encompassed more volatility and anonymity than Mass Effect's Commander Shepard? Which it's an interesting way to say that. He says she is one of the most actualized player avatars, and a freedom of expression via choice and consequence, and the best that gaming has to offer. That's high praise. What do you guys think of Commander Shepard?
Very high.
I got a spot already for him. You're not gonna like it
Well,
though, Ben.
well, but tell me about it. What makes Commander Shepard cool? Like I played, just laying it out, I played as the male Shepard, so it'd be
Mhm, I
interesting
did
to
too.
see if like you guys think Fem Shepard is higher, but it does seem like the internet loves Fem Shepard more.
Now
But-
we are, for this experiment, we are grading. Is this both shepherds?
But
Being put on the list?
that's
Oh,
the thing,
so
they
like-
had the same dialogue though.
I'm aware. I just want there is a distinction of character. Yes,
I'm tempted
they
to
are considered two different characters.
I
put
think you
Commander
got it.
Shepard on there.
I think it's just Commander Shepard.
All right,
Yeah.
that's all I want to do. I wanted to establish we were just using
Commander.
it's
Okay.
just Commander
Yeah.
Shepard.
Yeah. I mean, it has some really good arguments there about what makes Commander Shepard so great. Because in addition, I mean, I think when they were pitching that game before it came out, one of the things was like Mass Effect and Commander Shepard is supposed to be sort of like Jack Bauer from 24 in space. And even before it came out, that idea was, as someone who has seen every Jack Bauer season of 24, that was a very attractive idea to me. And I think they pulled it off so well with that concept of not only a player avatar, like making a character that you're that you can choose like compelling things for, but also a character who kind of always does the right thing, and it's just how they do the right thing. It's not that difference between is this a good or an evil, like Knights of the Old Republic situation. I liked that Commander Shepard is always has the galaxy's best interest at heart, and it's just what methods are necessary and expedient to get those results.
And sometimes those methods are super ruthless.
Yeah, but sometimes when a whole, planet's worth of lives hang in the balance, you have to be a little ruthless.
One of the things I love about Commander Shepard, and this is almost a gameplay thing, but it started in, I think, the second Mass Effect, where you would be in the middle of a dialogue conversation and you could get a prompt if you were like, I'm done with this. And you could just enact like, all right, action time, or shoot this guy in the middle of a dialogue scene, or like kick him out of a window or something. Like that kind of speaks to your point, Joe, of like, this is a guy or gal who gets things done.
Yeah. I remember in the first Mass Effect, one of the funniest things you can do in that whole game is just hang up on the council when they call. Like, you're supposed to call and report your progress into the council. And there's some important like exposition kind of stuff that happens in those conversations. You can just be a total jerk and like hang up on them. And then they kind of remember if you do that, because at the very end of the game, one of your final calls, you like call in to report, and they're just like, "Hey, Shepard, you called just to hang up on us again?" And Shepard just says, like, "You know it." Bang!
Really good.
Oh yeah, that's funny.
Yeah.
And it's super satisfying to do.
Yeah.
Does anybody not like
moments of player choice like that, I think really, really help bring that character to life.
Yeah, does anybody not like Commander Shepard?
Love Shep.
Where are we going to put him then?
Above Ganon.
I say.
I put her at number 3.
Oh, I was
Oh,
thinking below Snake and above Gladys.
Wow, I was even going to go as high as above Kratos. So we're all over the board here.
Wow.
But I could see below Kratos. I could go with Joe as the new number 3. Why do you guys not like him as much as Chun-Li?
I mean, now we're just splitting hairs here, all right? Those are both great characters.
Yeah, for me, it's I've never felt a sense of agency and connection to a protagonist quite like Shepard, because of everything you guys talked about, and because that I can't state how important bringing that character into 2 and 3 was for me, because they did such a masterful job of making me feel like even those little interactions, like you said, like mattered. And I think there are very few games even after that game that did that to me. So I have a very special spot in my heart for my Shepard. So I guess in that it's hard for me too because I'm trying to balance like legacy. When I look at Chun-Li and Snake, like they have been such iconic figures for longer. You know what I mean? And I think that's important when we're talking about ranking these kind of things.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, like, I feel like there's always a balance that you need to strike between this is a good thing and this is an iconic thing. And I don't mean to say that isn't a factor or isn't important, but I think that as a character, I think Commander Shepard is so much more impactful and interesting and has forged much stronger connections with players than Chun-Li, for instance, who's just a character I was never very good at using, so I don't particularly like.
What?
Yeah,
She's
but-
so easy. You just jam on the kick button.
But I mean,
Yeah,
but you see just
Anyway.
as many cosplays and fan art of Chun-Li as you do FemShep. You know, like that emotional resonance is there for sure. But I mean, yeah, I my emotional connection, I would say I'm fine with 3. Putting Shepard at 3.
Chun-Li looks cooler than Shepard, but Shepard has more personality. I think.
I don't know. Not if Shepard's wearing that N7 armor and everything all decked out. That's awesome.
I'm
All
good
right,
with
so is anybody? It sounds like it's 3. Dan, you can't talk us out of it. I'm sorry.
You know what? Again, I'm not gonna fight these characters. I'm not gonna. Yeah, it's not worth fighting. Honestly.
3. It is. Damn
Well,
it is.
maybe this will be worth fighting for. The third character on this list, Jacob's list, is Mega Man. He says, "Okay, I've been far too verbose about explaining my love for the last 2 characters, so this one I'll try to keep short. It's Mega Man. He's diverse. He can be cutesy. He can be a main character. He can be badass. He has all the cliche character tropes in the spin-offs. He's endearing to the point that I don't even love his games, and he apparently hasn't even finished one, he says, but he still loves the character."
Really? Man, that's fascinating. You know, I like Mega Man games a lot. I don't think I've ever thought of him as like he's certainly an iconic character, but does he have any character like at all?
And just as a reminder, for this list, we only judge characters by their appearances in games. So this would not count like Mega Man's contributions to the comics or like anime. We're judging
Or
him
in
as
Captain N, the Game Master.
Yep.
Oh,
we've
well,
brought
yeah,
that
he'd
up
be number
before.
1.
Hey guys,
Didn't he have the most annoying voice? It just did not fit the
Oh.
character at all. Oh my god, so weird. But yeah,
See-
so this is just Mega Man as he appears in the games.
This is where it gets hard for me because you guys have Auron from Final Fantasy X just so much further down the list than he should be. So for me to agree that, because like by the looks of this, of our 15 characters or 16 now, Auron is what, number 12?
He's at 13 now.
Okay.
Now we've added Shepard, yeah.
Okay, so the bottom line is Mega Man has to go under Auron from Final Fantasy X.
I mean, I'm even looking at a lot of stuff above Auron, and like, I don't think he quite ranks. I mean, he's very iconic. He's got a good look, but like, I don't know. I could
See,
maybe see him going above Chuck Green, but I don't know. He probably goes below Auron. I think you're right.
So then the question
He's
is,
better than
where-
Toad.
Toad Jackson.
so then is the question, is Mega Man better or worse than Fox McCloud?
I think he has a more iconic look, right? And I think his that's not a real
See, Fox
I don't know
McCloud
if
just
that's
looks like
true.
taxidermy to me.
Definitely on that one box art for sure. But
Yeah,
you know what?
exactly.
Fox McCloud has like those robot legs. Isn't that cool?
It is cool.
Mega Man has all robot legs, robot arms.
I don't
Yeah.
like this. You're turning the argument against me.
It's a good.
He
It's a
does
good
have the
debate
arm
strategy.
buster.
I think that's one of the main things. Like if silhouette wise, I think I would put him above Fox.
I have a huge fondness for Star Fox, which is unfounded at this point because there's only been like 2 good games. But man, it's hard because I really like Fox because I think he's attached to those fuzzy memories of Star Fox on the SNES. But Mega Man's just had way more good games, and he's a cute little guy, and yeah, I think he's probably better than Fox.
I think that's the play. I think that's what we have to do.
Any other thoughts on Mega Man?
Where's he going? Where's he? Right above Fox, below Auron.
He'd be the
Yeah.
new number 14.
I think we should put him up above Chibi Robo. But
I was looking at the under Luigi spot too, but Joe made a very strong case for why that shouldn't be.
Joe is just trying to hinge everything around Auron. Okay, everything is either above or below that anchor for him. I think.
I mean,
Or I mean, if you guys want to have another discussion about it, we could renegotiate the list and put Auron higher.
See, I told you. That's all. He wants to change what we've already got.
yeah, I don't know. I think somebody would have to write in and say you need to rank Auron better for that to happen, right?
Yeah, that's true. We have no power.
Chat or not chat? You guys aren't chat. Sorry.
Yeah, we gotta talk to the viewers.
Sorry.
Get some cheering going.
Oh man, what a day. I dare you to write that in. See if we can re-rank this thing. See it, make it happen.
What if the conclusion is no, we're not doing that?
Well then.
I mean, Alex is writing the email right now.
Yeah.
Oh,
this is what
okay.
he's actually doing.
Yeah,
You have to make sure I am on the episode if this email comes in. Otherwise, Auron's gonna get put down with Funky Kong at the very bottom.
Oh my gosh, that'd be so good. Oh,
I think this is happening now.
I like Auron just fine. The thing is, Brian Shea brought it up, and he was not championing Auron super hard. But where would you, just for argument's sake, Joe, where would you put Auron?
Oh man, for me, I think Auron would go right around Big Daddy there. So
He's your big daddy, right?
yeah, so he'd probably be maybe a little better than Luigi and Chibi Robo, maybe below Gladys and Ganon, about on Big Daddy territory.
Yeah.
So I think Big Daddy's probably a little high also.
Really?
I was looking at this list, and I don't know why Alex Vance got ranked so low. Who's making this list?
How dare you?
But as we said, it's not up to us. It's a scientific process. That's how we come to these conclusions.
Okay. So
Yeah.
did we decide then under Orange?
Mega Man, the new number 14. That's what it sounds like. And unless anybody's going to object.
Yeah, I already
Let's
did
do it.
object. I already did object.
Well, so
So what happens
Alex, are
after
you
that?
siding with him, or are you
Dan's objection was noted. He's the new number 14.
All right. You know what? I don't care that much about Mega Man, but I do think he's getting, the short end of the stick on this one.
I think I'm with
Well, it's very
Tack.
appropriate because he's very short.
He's an iconic character that deserves to be above some of these scrubs. All right. That's all I'm saying.
I think before Joe
You're putting him above Chuck Green from Dead Rising. If I was to take a picture of Mega Man and a picture of Chuck Green from Dead Rising out on the street, and I'd show them to random people, who do you think would know? Do you think anyone would know who Chuck Green is?
They would
I
say,
think-
"Get out of my face."
let's renegotiate Chuck Green also.
What? Joe, I wish we could renegotiate this entire freaking list.
It's an interesting can of worms,
They
man.
tell me that's not how I can do things here. I just got to put him on the spot.
I think our hands are tied, Ben, number 14.
Yeah, I mean, I need to hear a good argument for him to go above.
You know what? You don't. I don't care if you put him at 14. The people.
All
will
right,
speak to
I guess
you.
it's locked
They
in.
will let you know
Number
who I'm
14.
at.
I just want to make sure history marks that I was with Tack before Joe
Just
went into
remember,
the
guys,
Orange thing. I was.
The next
I
time
was,
I'm at E3, I can't wait to see Chuck Green up on the stage. They just show a picture of him and be like, "Whoa, he's back! The Blue Bomber, Chuck Green."
What? Actually, he did have that costume, right?
Unbelievable.
Yeah, he can wear Mega Man stuff.
Yeah, dude,
or is
Chuck
that
Green-
just Frank?
Let's get Chuck Green. How is Chuck Green above Fox McCloud? You know what? This list doesn't make any sense to me anyway. Let's just go. Let's go.
Yeah, it's scientific.
I love it.
It's a process.
This is the fire that I wanted from this. Let's go.
All right. That's our list. That ends our meaningless character ranking section. If you have a list of characters, please write in. The limit is 3. You can't submit more than 3, but I love the idea of you telling us why you want these characters on the list. So please do that. Podcast@GameInformer.com. That's where you write in. And now we've reached the final segment of our show. It's a segment we like to call Get Wrecked. And that's where we recommend some stuff for you, the lovely listener, to go check out on our website and magazine. Dan Tack.
Yo,
do
get
you wanna
wrecked. What up, bro? Get wrecked.
Yeah, wreck yourself, man.
Oh, is this where we put like a G Fuel ad in? Anyway, yeah, check it out. The Fall Guys review I did. I think if you haven't played Fall Guys yet, check out my review. I think you'll like the review and you'll like the game. There you go. It's on GameInformer.com.
That's a good one.
Done deal.
I want to recommend Ben, our host here, wrote up a nice list of 10 hidden gems that are coming out in the next few months here. Like we talked about all the big upcoming games like Cyberpunk and stuff like that coming out yet this year that are sort of in Game of the Year contention. But there are lots of little, like, smaller titles that don't necessarily get that same kind of coverage. And I think Ben put together a nice list of games that are coming out that you should be excited about.
Yeah, there's some cool stuff on there that I wasn't super aware of when I started the list, but now that I've written it, I'm like very excited about it. Boyfriend Dungeon, which I was like aware of, was like this crazy dating sim where you can date your sword, and then Spiritfarer, where it's just like a building sim where you're on a boat, but you're trying to guide people into the afterlife. That one sounds really cool.
Yeah,
definitely.
And then I'll also recommend wreck something. A couple of years ago, this is 2018, I wrote a list called "Is July 31st the most important day in gaming history?" And as we all know, yes, it probably is. It's kind of like it was a joke list. I re-promoted it a couple weeks ago when July 31st came around. But I was just looking at it today, and it's a very interesting entry that I'll just read for you. July 31st, 1982, Atari game designer Howard Scott Warshaw, I swear I wrote this in 2018, meets with legendary filmmaker Steven Spielberg. But during the meeting, Spielberg accidentally refers to Howard as Herman. Embittered, Warshaw spends the next several weeks designing a game based off Spielberg's E.T. the Extraterrestrial that is terrible and almost ruins the film. Spielberg learns of Warshaw's plans and hires actors Richard Dreyfuss and Harrison Ford to sneak into Atari's manufacturing plant and steal every copy of the game and then bury them in the Mexican desert. So, some real history for you. Go check it out. Is July 31st the most important day in gaming history?
Cool. It's amazing.
Wow. I just got wrecked.
Yeah.
All right.
I feel pretty wrecked after that.
Alex,
so much.
everything?
Yeah. I don't. We're getting to the point where I think most people have beaten Ghost of Tsushima at this point. And if you have and you're loving it and want to hear more about it, we did a spoiled for it, Joe Miller and I. And it's just a lot of fun to dissect those things and we talk about where we think things are going. I think the end is very interesting and something I think we're all excited for. So if you just beat it and are excited to hear about more about it, go check it out. It was a really good conversation between the three of us.
Great. Well, thanks for watching or listening to this episode of the Game Informer Show. We really appreciate it. Please like and subscribe to the magazine. We appreciate that as well. And please join us next week where we'll have another episode waiting for you. Till then, game on.
Game on.
Game on. Get wrecked.
Game on.